Hey buddies, welcome to AmassGames. My name is Simon. Today we're doing how to set up, play and review the game Terracotta Army. It does not come with any player aids. These have been printed off and I will be talking to you about these. So these are very useful player aids I recommend. There's only one thing on there which was not correct to do with statues, which I'll come back onto. So this is a game for 2 to 4 players by Board and Dice. This is a game in the T series of games. It is the 5th game if you want to check out the videos for the other ones, such as for Hotness, which was on prior to this one, which is the 4th in the series by David Turtsey. Check out my playlist by David Turtsey. Also my playlist for Board and Dice. And prior to that, you've also got other videos for the likes of Tekkenu, which is the 3rd one. And prior to that, there was Teotihuacan, and then firstly with Tolkien. So this is a game set in, as you may notice, the sort of the Chinese Empire, and what we're looking to do is get the most victory points by getting the best mausoleum, which we are contributing to. It's a game that takes 90 to 120 minutes, and there is a purely Euro game. This is a game with that no luck. We have a wheel which you can turn and move wherever you want to be as a starting position. We are going to have clay. Now this is these to do the Terracotta Army, the Terracotta Warriors. And I have actually seen them. So what you're going to do is place these one of these on each of these places face down. These are known as the market. And I think it'd be quite nice to have this in shot actually. So if you have any questions, please let me know as always in the comments are best in YouTube, because any other updates I can give you information there as well. Over here is a little box. This box contains the various warriors that you can be getting out, and I'll be talking to you about how scoring works those as well. For now, let me just leave off some clay to the side. So we have some statues. Down here we have statues, we have horses, we've got over here, we've got some kneeling archers, and what they're going to be doing is acting as tie breaks, which I'll come back on to explain in a moment. They always cost more as they come out in the game. And whilst I'm setting up, make sure you also check out Linktree. There are occasionally competitions, but they are time sensitive, so they do disappear. These are footmen that I'm now placing out as well. Again, you may have seen my unboxing teaser trailer preview overview video. This is being filmed in 4K, and of course, if you are watching as a short, you'll now be watching the full video. And I do recommend commenting, as always, is best in YouTube. This is money, so I'm just leaving a couple of money out. Every player starts off with 3. But I tend to baggy up so that everyone starts with that stuff anyway. So that is money placed out. You're going to choose a colour. So there's 4 different colours. I'm just going to set up for 1 player initially, just in terms of space and stuff like that. And also check out TikTok, check out Facebook where you can join the discussion. You can also head over through to Instagram. There's loads of photos, such as this game being played at various player counts. So inside here we've got some standees. We'll use these for placing out your statues. You're going to have various weapon tokens, there'll be 4. Make sure that always flip to the face down side. I mentioned everyone starts off with 3 money. You're also going to have artisans. These are large guys which stay off and are not used at the minute. I recommend you always leave them off to the side with everybody else so that all those guys can be attended and get when as well they will appear. You're going to have 5 craftspeople. This is where we're going to place them out. You can only place them out in a small spot, so there's 12 spaces, but you can, as an action, which I'll show you how that works, upgrade them to the large spot where only a craftsperson can go. That means that that blocks off that zone. No one else can go into a zone where you have a large craftsperson. I'll do them face down, just to show you that no one else can take that position. When you do play somebody, I kind of recommend you actually do then flip and face down whilst you're taking your turn, so people can keep an eye out on what you are doing. Let me leave that there for the time being. So as I mentioned, you have 4 weapons, they're going to come out. You're going to have master craftsmen as well, so you have 6 of those, values of 1 through to 6, which will be placing out in a numerical order, because there is a cost associated and they get more and more expensive to place out. So leave those off to one side as well. A scoring marker, place it on the 0 space of the Kramer track. And you're also going to place one on turn order as well. That's down here. So initially, let's say I'm starting, so it's going to go there. You can bid for turn order, so I'll show you how that works too. Inspectors, they're going to be inspecting the mausoleum to see how well it's looking. Depending on the number of players, you're also going to be placing out this token there, which represents who is going to be going first, and in a 3 or 4 player game, you're placing out more. Now in a 2 player game, everyone's going to have 5 of these craftsmen and artisans, whereas in a 3 player game, you're going to have 1 fewer, and in a 4 player game, you're going to have 1 fewer again. If you happen to be going first, I mentioned you get 3 coins, but if you're going second, you also get a clay, and if you're going third, etc., then you take some additional more stuff as well. You take 2 extra clay and 1 extra coin. It is a 5-round game, so we're going to play over 5 rounds. There's going to be scoring at the end of each round, and there's going to be an upkeep phase as well. Randomly take out these scoring tokens, and we're going to go through based on the orientation as they appear, and decide actually how we are going to score. So these are placed out randomly, and we're going to have various things coming out. So there we are. Everything else will go back in the bag and will not be used. If you want to see other videos, check out obviously the rest of the channel. Make sure you check out the AmassGames playlist. They have a setup, play and review playlist, amongst many other things, including heading of course through to that description as well for various updates. And of course, like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. So now we are set up and we're ready to take our turn. The first thing you want to do to try and win is be aware of the fact that when you place out warriors, you can be scoring points, as mentioned on here. So what can you do on your turn? Well, let's, as an example, say I've started off with 3 money, so what can I do with that money? Well, I can twist this wheel. I can twist it 1 position, following the arrow directions, in the inner one or the middle one. That is it. And on my turn, I can rotate if I want to, but let's say I don't choose not to. What I can do is place out my little craftsperson, and let's say go for here. What this gives me, it'll give me 3 coin, 2 clay, and it allows me to build a statue. So what we can do is take the 3 coins, take 2 clay, obviously from the supply, which of course will go this way up. Again, this wasn't mine. And then I can build a statue if I want to. So if I want to build a statue, of which I haven't actually got the last guy, which happens to be a musician, I'll explain how they work. They are scoring. Now in this case, I'm choosing not to do the final action because it doesn't give me any benefit. I'll show you why in a moment. And ultimately, if I choose not to do it, then I don't get any benefit. If I didn't want to take the coin, instead I could be taking 1 coin or 1 wet clay. Equally, I could be taking 1 coin and 1 wet clay from the middle section as well. On the outer, you can't do anything else other than the action, and that's it. So, say I took that turn, that was it. Not very interesting. But now let's say it's somebody else's turn, they've gone somewhere, or they've blocked off a space, and then it's back to my turn. Well, I've got a couple of clay. Let's say this option is still available. This one costs me 2 clay. I'm going to spend my 2 clay. Then what I can do is I can take 2 clay, which actually gives it back. But firstly, this lets me build a warrior. So warriors are over here. There's various ones. The first one you get out, as I said, is always worth 8 points. But let's talk about scoring and how that's going to work. Well, first up, let's talk about this guy. This guy happens to be a chap who will score 5 points if you have the most. That's called dominance. If you have more than anyone else, you'll score 5 victory points. If you have at least one of them, so you have presence, you will score 2 victory points. In the second and third round, etc., those obviously amplify, and there's the bigger delta in terms of where you'll get points for. So let's say I go for this guy. That is this guy here. So it's worth 8 points, so I'd get 8 points on the track. And I would place my base on there. Now, where do I place it? Well, if I have the most, remember, I will score 5 points. But looking into other things where it could be going, I will be scoring 9 points if I've got the most in this position along here. Equally, I will score 11 points if it's in this quadrant. This does not count as a quadrant. So it depends where I might want to place them. But now let's just place it, here. I'll show you why in a moment. Also, we have inspectors. So there's 3 elements of scoring that happen in each round. The first one is musicians, which I'll come back onto. The second one is inspectors. They will look and obviously inspect in their row and column where they're looking. And if you have the most, then you'll get 7 points. If you have presence, you'll have 3 points. And then they will move on. And then we obviously have this one. So we have musicians will score, you will have the inspectors you'll score, and then you'll have obviously the end of round bonus. Now, one thing that I did get out, but I can't see it, is the round marker. So let me try and find that again and see wherever that's disappeared off to. You also do have a 100 marker and a 200 marker piece as well that you can be playing with as and when that occurs. Okay, so what can you do? Well, you've seen what I've taken on my turn. I've taken some actions, I've spent some clay. This case round, I get some clay back, and I can now flip over my halberd. So this flips over. Now, why is this important? Well, when you have active weapons, you can then trigger the ability of the warriors. The way that works is, well, for this guy, as he's out, if you flip over your halberd weapon, then you'll get 3 victory points, and you can move one of your warriors in a straight line. Also, you have an officer. What they let you do is you flip over the sword, and they're going to give you 1 victory point, and you can move the inspector 1 space forward or backwards, which could obviously be useful for scoring. You've then got the crossbowman over here, and again, if you flip over the crossbow, you are going to get 1 victory point per empty space next to every other warrior. So if they started here, that's 2 victory points for you, obviously pointing at whoever you want. But unlike in here, you actually count towards any other statue as well. Lastly, we have got the soldier. The soldier, if you flip over the pike, then what you're going to get is 1 victory point and 2 coins. So that's how that's going to work. So I've placed this out here. Let's just say it is the end of the round. Then what's going to happen is we're going to say this came out as well, this musician, and it happened to be in this row. Then you're going to score 1 point for every musician, for anybody who's got a musician in the same row, then you will score 1 point. If you've got more than 1 musician, you're going to score twice. So if I happen to have, let's say, this guy out, and he happened to be here, then of course I'll be scoring 2 points, because 1 and 2, hence the shape at the bottom. So I score 2 points for that. Then these guys will, then we check on here. So I have got the most here, because no one else is there. I'll score 7 points, then that moves up. No one scores anything, and then this moves up as well. Lastly, we check who has the most, in which case I have the most, in which case I'd get 5 points, and no one else is there, so they don't get anything, otherwise they would get 2. Okay, so let's talk about some other things. We have this area here. This is called the Master Builders. What they do is ultimately they can give you a bit of an upgrade as the game goes on. They give you a little income at the end of each round. So for example, you'll get an extra coin if you've got out these guys. So let's say I've taken the action obviously related to it. So if I'd taken obviously this top one, top left, we find them over here. I go over here. This allows me to flip over any clay. At the end of the round, you flip over all of your wet clay to dry. So don't hoard too much clay necessarily. So you can flip it all back over. You can then take this action, or you can take a coin or one wet clay. So you take this action. It's going to cost you your first Master Craftsman, which is going to cost you 1. Place it there, and then what you can do is if it's round 1, then you can spend coin equal to the round number that you're in and build out another warrior. But you do not get any victory points, and you cannot use the special ability. So that's how that's going to work. Handy though, maybe in a tie break, whatever it might be. In future, whenever you take an action where this guy is going to be aligned, then of course you can always spend money to do the same action again. Equally, if we come down to the person with this like spider wheel, then if you've taken this action, so now it's obviously going to cost you more, you can do these in any order you like, then you would spend obviously 2 in this case, but again I said any order you like, and this allows you to take the inner action again. So as soon as you place it, you get the inner ability or the extra ability. So this one is, I've paid 4 clay to get a warrior. I can trigger this ability, pay another 4 clay if I've got it. So that's something to be aware of. And then of course you flip the sword. Again, not always you'll have a sword to flip, but that's how it works. And this is the tiny little round marker. So let's talk about the other ones. Over here, this allows you to move the inspector 1 or 2 spaces forward, not backwards, forward only. Here, you get 3 clay. Here, whenever you build a warrior, you need to spend 1 of your clay and chuck it into a respective zone. So I built one over here. See if it's a clay over in the markets relevant to the quadrant that you're in. So this means that this allows you to take 2 clay sets from wherever you like. So there's more here, so obviously take that one, and let's say this one. And finally, this lets you flip over all of your weapons. Okay, at the income phase, so once you finish the round, we'll score for musicians, which I'll come back on to the rest of these in a moment. You score for the inspectors, you score for the round. You'll be getting all your income, so if you've got 1 in each of these places, you get 3 income, or if not, you get 2 or 1 if you've only got 1 out. Then you flip over your clay, but for each of these that you have out, you'll save 1 of them, so it'll still be wet. Finally, we do cleanup, so you take everybody back. So let's talk about these guys. You can see around here we have some statues. You pay a coin, plus you need to pay the weapon related to where it is. So at the minute none of my weapons are active, but if I had a weapon active, this lets me pay out a coin and flip over obviously my spike. Whereas over here, I can pay a crossbowman and 1 coin, and this brings out the kneeling archer. The way that works is it's a tie break. So normally, if you have the most, then you're going to win. But if you're equal with somebody else, it doesn't count as an extra person, but if you're tying, then you will break ties. Hence why it's got a wedge pointing to where it wants to be. Okay, so that's that work. It also gives you 2 points at the end of the game. Coming on to the footman, if you pull out a footman, the way it's going to work is a bit like in Carcassonne, so check out my video for that. Whoever has the most around those 8 squares will be gaining themselves 8 points at the end, but if you're present, you'll get 2 points if you weren't the majority holder. Again, that's only at the game end, whereas the musician is every single round. Lastly, the horse. Now the horse means you've got to be on the board already, but what you can do is place your standee where that position is there, and it simply takes up a bit more space, which could be useful for whatever you're wanting to do, maybe blocking somebody else. So that's how a horse will work. Now again, once you've placed out a guy, it's then going to cost you an additional coin to build the next statue. Okay, so we've gone through the various abilities. We've talked about those specialists, these statues here also known as specialists. We've talked about the 6 master actions. We've also talked about obviously what you do in your turn. We've talked about the scoring phase. We've talked about the cleanup. The last thing with cleanup is you also do twist this one more in the inner direction and one more in the outer direction as well. So inner, and then obviously the innermost one, and then obviously the central piece as well. So when you do final scoring, you are going to be doing the following: scoring these footmen. So again, whoever has the most will score 8 points. You're going to be obviously checking your inspectors, checking that final round. And lastly, if there's any group of at least 2 of the same type of warrior, not your bases, but the same type, so you're kind of the colours of the warriors now, well, if there's only 1, take them off the board. But if there happen to be 2, so like, let's say that would come off, but if you have 2 here, then you'll score 1 victory point per each one there. However, if somebody else happens to be there, then you're going to be scoring 1 victory point times by the amount of other people who happen to be there as well. So if you've got 2 people, and let's say they are 1 of each, well, that's only going to be 2 victory points each, because you're scoring 1 of your people times 2, because there are now 2 colours out. However, if you happen to have more out, then not only will you score, let's say, 1, 2 times 2, that scores you 4 points, so now you guys are all worth obviously double. You also have, you check for dominance in the area. So you have more than somebody else. This only happens again if there's at least 2 different players in competition for this. You score 5 victory points for dominance, and the other people will only score 2 victory points for presence. Also remember, your specialist, your crossbowmen will score 2 points at the end, and any leftover money or wet or dry clay, you take the total amount and divide it by 2 rounding down, because you'll get 1 victory point for each. That is how you play the game. My rating of this is currently an 8 out of 10. It's a bit more cleaner, smoother than I've found the other T-Series games to a degree. I think it goes as a smooth duration. There's a lot of thinking. It can take 5 minutes on a turn. It can take 1 minute. It really depends what you're doing. If you're just grabbing resources, that's fine. And regardless of player count, it doesn't outstay its welcome, because in a 2-player game, there's always going to be 2 spaces left over, potentially, unless you have a craftsman, in which case, obviously, you have 3 spaces left over or more, etc. Whereas a 3-player game, all of these 12 spaces will be taken up, again, unless you use the craftsman, and again, as a 4, the same is going to occur. It's actually, money's tighter in a 4-player game, so that's quite an interesting thing. It's wonderful to see this mausoleum take shape, and people fighting over various bits and thinking, well, I'm going to do this, hoping somebody else doesn't take it because it doesn't really interest them, and then you slam down an interesting piece. Obviously, these get more expensive. This is great to do. I've tried lots of different ways of playing it, lots of different interactions, and yeah, it's very interesting. Of course, multiple people can be competing over first player. You can't choose the order, it's got to be first. Lacking a player aid, like I said, that is a shame. And no, I mean, the art in particular is my favourite in the T-Series of games so far. And I also like, obviously, the fantastic miniatures, etc. If I do have any other thoughts, and I think there was one other, I think there's a slight improvement in how I would have put the rulebook across. I think I spotted one typo as well. The scores, you reach over 200, so you do need those extra score markers. And yeah, it just about all fits back in the box as well. So yeah, highly enjoyable, really, this did really impress me. I did hear a lot of good hype about it, and it was fully brought to the fore as well. It's, yeah, like I said, the least complicated of those T-Series games so far. I know the next one is due to be even heavier, but hope you found this of interest. Of course, do let me know, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. But for now, back to the table.